Michelle Fox and welcome to The Simple Quilter. Today's episode is going to give you a tour of my quilt room / quilt studio. Today I love seeing other people's quilt rooms and thought you all would enjoy this. The first thing I want to do is I want to try to give you a 360 view of the room so that you can kind of get the overall look of the room, and then I will zoom in on some of my favorite features. Okay, just give me a minute to change things up a little bit here. So here we go. We're going to start over here. This is the light switch when you come in. There's some magazine racks I have there. There are my storage cabinets, and then as you move around the room, I have 3 really fantastic windows that let in beautiful light. However, I have to shut those for filming because it creates such a glare. There's a little sofa there that my daughter likes to come in and sit on, and sometimes when I'm reading, I sit over there. The gray mat that you see is my cutting table. And then as you move on around, you see my TV and my sewing machine, my cabinets. And then as we move on around this way, you see my ironing board, my design wall, and then over here is my bookcase, and then the doorway to our entryway. Okay. So I'm going to go back over to where my sewing machine is and show you a few of my favorite things. Okay. So one of my favorite things right there, that wire sewing machine thread holder on the wall, that holds my Aerofill thread. I have a little bit of Mettler thread, but I primarily use Aerofill. Then I want to show you how I store my fat quarters. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here and show you my fat quarters. Let me move my quilt chair out of the way. Okay, and right here in this drawer, you can see all my fat quarters. Well, this isn't all my fat quarters, but most of my fat quarters. And I try to arrange them by color in this drawer. It's just a nice, easy way to keep them all in order, and I could just pull that open and easily see what colors that I have. Okay, I have my computer here. I have a little fabric bag that somebody gave me that I put my lotions in, and of course Kleenex, and then in the corner you can see a white piece of paper, and that is my UFOs. I keep a list of my UFOs so that I know what I have. Alright, now the next thing I want to show you is my main fabric storage. Now here you see my fabrics lined up there. I have a bucket here, and I use this for when I'm finished with a project. I put the scraps in there, and when that gets full, I later disperse it into my storage bins for my scraps. Down lower here are fabrics, and these are 2 stacks deep. So these are my lights, and then there's darks behind there. I also like to use these little fabric storage items that you can wrap fabric around. You can see I've wrapped a few here, and all these have been wrapped. And again, there's a second layer behind those. And then down there at the bottom, right there, you can see how I have my bolts stored. And I really like, when I get fabric on a bolt, I really like to keep it there and keep it on the bolt. I just like how that works out. I like storing it on the bolt. Alright, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my sewing chair. If you can afford it, I would recommend you get a highly adjustable chair. The seat pan depth is adjustable, the back is adjustable, the height, the tilt, the armrests come up and down, and that just allows you to get a really good support for long-term sitting, like what we do when we are sewing. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is my design wall. Alright, now this is my design wall, and up above my design wall you can see how we just installed a curtain rod that has little hooks on it that holds quilts for when I film. Now I love this design wall. It extends the length of almost this entire wall. Let me show you. So it extends from there clear over to here. And I love that. I can put an entire quilt up on the wall so that I can just line it all up, sit in my chair, turn around, get a row, stack it up, take it to my chair, and sew it. Stick it back up on the wall. I really love my design wall. And one thing that I recently started doing, I have all these wall hangings stacked up, stored away. So I decided that I would put those up sometimes just so I could enjoy them, and what an easy way to do it. Now this design wall is made out of flannel backed tablecloth fabric. I found that on big rolls at Walmart, and we just tacked it up there with those white tacks. And then I have my ironing board. And then my iron. And right here you can see I have my best press, my distilled water. This little rolling cabinet, it rolls. And the drawers are just for my scrapbook paper. So nothing related to quilting in those other than what sits on top. You can kind of see that whole design wall there. I love that design wall. Okay, and then as we move over here, this is my bookcase. Above there is a little collage that I made years ago and hung it up there. And then this is my bookcase. I keep some of my favorite books there, my cards, recipe books, most of my quilt books. Now one thing that I really love, my favorite thing, is right here. Right there. Those are my granddaughter's little books, and when we watch her, she loves to get those and take a look at those. Okay, so now I'm going to have to move the camera around, so give me a minute. Okay, this is our entryway, and you can see I have a quilt hanging right out there with some of my little antique stuff out there. Okay, and then let me show you one of my next, favorite area. This is my granddaughter's little reading nook. She loves to climb up in that chair. Okay, let me explain a few things right here. Okay. So this is just a magazine rack that I purchased at Hobby Lobby, and I do try to keep my quilt magazines thinned down. I'm sure you all know how piled up they can get. So I store my quilt fabrics there. And then next are my cabinets that store all of my UFOs. And if you don't know what a UFO is an unfinished object. So I have lots of UFOs over here, but let me show you. So here's the top of the cabinets, and they have some of my quilts on them, and then they go clear down to the floor, and you can see how I've used those art bins that I talked about in my second video with my favorite quilt tools, how I utilize those. Okay. Now, these cabinets came from Walmart. A lot of people don't believe me when I say that, but these actually did come from Walmart, and my husband just had to assemble them, but they're really neat. The doors slide, and then I have more stuff stored there. You can see all my UFOs. There on the top I have some fabric bundles. Let me go back over to this. Okay, so there you see a lot of my pre-cuts. I have my charm packs in boxes, my jelly rolls, my scrap bags, and then I have some kits down below there. Now here you can see my art bins and how this says Amy's quilt on it, and that has an entire quilt. That of course is my daughter Amy's quilt that I have not finished. The next cabinet you can just see more little books. In this area I do have 3 beautiful windows here, but I do have to keep them shut during filming because it creates such a glare. This is just one of my ruler racks. This allows me to store them horizontally, and that just attaches to the wall. I have a couple of wooden crates here, and I use these for storage. This is just a couch, a small little love seat that's in here. And then I just have a bulletin board and, of course, a calendar. I do love the light that comes in the windows because it really is just beautiful light, and it really lights up my workspace. It's just during filming, it just creates too much of a glare. Here, okay. Now I do want to show you how I store my 2-inch strips. Again, I told you I love the art bins. These hold the 2-inch strips. And sometimes when I finish a project, if I have enough fabric, I will cut 2-inch strips and just put them in these containers for future quilt projects. So then my scraps are in a usable form. I also, whatever binding strips I have left over, I put those in the bottom one because sometimes I make scrap bindings and I have those ready for when I make scrap quilts. This is just a vertical storage for my big rulers. This is just a little tray that I store my scissors and just quilt notions, my cutters in. I told you all in my favorite quilting tools video that I use lots of notepads, and that's what's there, and also over here in this tray. Okay, so here's my cutting table, and this cutting table is really neat. I purchased this from Home Depot, and it's adjustable, and I'm really tall, so I have to crank it up pretty high. It has really good locks on the wheels so that it doesn't move around while you're cutting. But let me show you how this lowers. Okay. So this is just a little bag that I put my scraps in, and I just keep that right there. Pull this out away from my table, and then it just cranks down. And this is a nice feature because when I need to fold a large quilt, or when I'm working on quilting a larger piece, I can just lower this right down to the height of my table. And because it's on rollers, I can put it here, or I can move it over to the side to help support my quilt project as I'm sewing. And I mentioned just quick earlier that this is just a little scrap bag that I use to put my scraps in as I'm cutting, and all those little pieces go directly in here. Then under my table I have a larger trash can, and I dump that into that, and I use that to make dog beds for our local animal shelter. Okay, so that's it for today's video. Thank you all for joining me. Please leave a comment below if you have a comment or a suggestion or a question. Will do my best to get back with you on those. And then also I wanted to tell you a little bit about what my next video is going to be about. I'm going to show you how to take old jeans and turn them into fabrics for making blue jean quilts. Until next time, have a great day.